Good evening. Good evening and welcome to Michelle Speaks. We have a great show for you today. I am doing this show on location. And as you all come on, I'm going to wait till you all begin to filter in. You all know I have the number that I see on the live come in, and that lets me know when to officially start. Good evening, good evening. I am so excited about today's show. Once again, thank all of you all who come in every week to support this platform on Sundays at 6 o'clock, where we have a conversation surrounding community, empowerment, uplifting, and everything that's just beautiful in the city of Montgomery, the capital of dreams. I am so absolutely floored by this beautiful space that I am in today. I want to say thank you so much to my guest for today, Mr. Brian Pleasant, and today we are at Pleasant Plaza. Pleasant Plaza is located on Madison, right here in the heart of Montgomery, right up from Crampton Bowl. And I wanted to give a special shout out. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you all so much. We have so many treats in store tonight. I just can't stop smiling. I want to personally thank my godchild, my little brother, Mr. Siobhan Harris. It was his idea that I should come on location at this amazing venue. And today I am at Pleasant Plaza, but I am in the VIP Hookah Lounge, which is a part of Pleasant Plaza. And as you can see, this space is I walked in here and I said, oh baby, they can't tell us nothing, honey. We are in this beautiful cosmopolitan space. It is very intimate, very beautiful. What you cannot see is in front of me. When I say it is a fully stocked bar, but I'm going to do right today. And I am just so humbled by all of the hospitality. You all know I believe in black businesses, and I absolutely adore when I see black men who are trying to create safe spaces for us to be able to come and have a good time. So as I stated, I'm in the VIP Hookah Lounge. Down below, we have what you call the experience, and it is an event center where you can come. And how this gig actually happened is that Siobhan was here. Mr. Pleasant believes in giving back to his community and providing wonderful things. So he hosted an event here for Alabama State University, the greatest university in the world. And all of this just began to happen. And when Mr. Pleasant found out everything, listen, he said, what do you need? What do you want? So hello to you all. Y'all know I can kind of see you all, but we're filming, but I see everybody. Hello, my loves. Everybody out there with all the love y'all give. Y'all know how to make a girl feel good. Y'all know when I knew I was coming to the VIP experience, I wanted to get real cute and jazzed up. And Mr. Pleasant has actually set up a hookah experience for me that I am going to share with you on the show. And it's very important to me. We're going to start out with a few things that I want you to know that is happening in our community and city, and then I will bring on my very esteemed guest. And he was so open and just available. He said, hey, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent. I said, well, you my type of guest. I love that. Wanted to quickly talk to you all about some information that I found out concerning MPS. You love the pink and green. Tiffany, get off my live. I already knew. I knew you were going to say something. Elizabeth put this ensemble together. The earrings I was going to wear, she told me they were too over the top. They were too much. So you all know Elizabeth likes to put the stamp on what I'm wearing. And so I want to give a shout out to my baby tonight for my ensemble. However, MPS, as you all know, our children, you all should be receiving your EBT cards. The pandemic food relief program is beginning to gear up again. Please do not buy into the notion that you do not need to contact them. You all know that I have people that are in spaces. I don't call their names because a lot of them go out on the limb to get me information. So Make sure that you all contact the 1-800 number. I'm going to post it on my page after the show. I'm going to give you the number to call. Make sure you have your child's social security number. You need to double check to make sure that you will be receiving an EBT card. I did not receive one the last time, and I was told they did not have the correct address. I corrected everything. I called this time and was told I would not be getting it because my child was denied. So I began digging to find out what was going on. The problem is that some of the lunchroom managers may have not changed the forms or did not resubmit the forms. So we literally have 10,000 children in Montgomery Public Schools that are slated not to receive these funds because of a mishap somewhere between MPS and the State Department. I am hoping that this situation is rectified immediately, because they cannot tell you that you do not fit into the economic bracket, because all children in MPS receive free and reduced lunch. That has been going on for years. There are people who make much more money than me have received their EBT card. 10,000 children will not receive their benefits. You will not receive your food benefits if we do not begin to make some noise and shake some bushes. I'm going to give you all on my page the 800 number, and I want you to call to double check. If you received them before, you should be fine. But people like myself, and there are thousands others that are slated not to receive this, but because there are people that really do care about our children in MPS, I want you to know that I do not think all of MPS is up to no good. That is a lie. The truth ain't in it. Okay? But we have to be vigilant for each other. Where I can't make something happen, you can make something happen. And so I want us to work diligently to make sure that all of our children who were virtual this school term receive their benefit. Yes, let's make it happen. Thank you so much. Second thing, last week I did not pay homage to a great man who left here. I believe that it is out of order for you to step into the place of condolences before the family has had an opportunity to say, grieve, and do what they need to do. I want to pay homage to a great man, Pharaoh Duncombe. This was a man who was a reflection of greatness, not just to MPS students, but to the Montgomery city, to our city as a whole. If you ever met him, if you were ever in the same room with him, you would never forget him. And if you ever had an opportunity to hear him preach, you knew that he was anointed and appointed by God. He was laid to rest on yesterday. He was a distinguished man of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. But what touched me more than anything was listening to the people whose lives he literally changed. And I'm not talking about, oh, just one here, two there. I'm talking about hundreds, thousands within this city who have come, some have gone. This man made an impact, and he is a shining example of educational excellence and black man excellence. I was so humbled. I think I met him once, but I felt like I knew him because anytime his name came up, people would go on and on about how wonderful this man was, how compassionate he was, how driven he was for our people, young people, to be their best to succeed. And so I wanted to just pay homage to him today and pray that God continue to keep his loving arms around his beautiful wife, beautiful daughter, son, beautiful family. May he rest in peace. And what I believe is God never takes without giving. And so I'm looking for the next generation of Pharaoh Duncombe's to rise up and be a positive impact in the lives of our young people, because we got to get out of the mindset that mama and daddy can do everything. Some of us had great parents, but it was a Pharaoh Duncombe that really got us on a street called straight. And I could go on and on, even when Mr. Terry, Henry Terry, would talk about him, or Mama Kiki would talk about him. And it was funny, she was telling me about the story. She got into a fight and he had to suspend her. But even in the midst of him having to do the right thing, he was able to give her comfort, to uplift her, to motivate her. So when she began to cry tears on yesterday, we began to just have conversations about those people in our lives that had an impact, that they weren't mama and daddy, but they felt like mama and daddy. And she talks about how he would never miss a class reunion, and that the students called him daddy, and people looked to him to be a father. So we thank God that he blessed us with this great man. He blessed this great city. And so without further ado, I want to bring up a gentleman who walks in that same type of spirit. I want to bring up what I consider now a good friend of mine, Mr. Brian Pleasant. He is the owner and operator, CEO of Pleasant Plaza. This is my buddy. I remember the first time we met, he was the preacher for the evening. And when I tell y'all, we were having so much fun in the back. He is just an absolute good guy. And I love the fact that he knows how to be a man of God, but not subject himself to the foolishness that we can sometimes engulf ourselves in as believers. Then I was sitting outside, and I was talking to, Kiki was talking about how Pharaoh Duncan's son was called Deuce. And he came out, and when I tell you respectful, came to my door, reached his hand out to me. And I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Brian." I said, "Oh, are you the junior?" And he said, "Yes." So I said, "I'm not calling you junior. My nickname for you gonna be Deuce." And he said, "Yes, ma'am." And I saw his interaction with his dad, so I'm absolutely in love. And folk know that I want a son so bad. And so if God graces me with that, listen, I'm gonna have a conversation with you. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, let's talk about this beautiful place. Where did the vision for Pleasant Plaza come from?
Well, ironically, I came to this space right next door probably about 5 years ago, 6 years now, and I was trying to rent space.
Okay.
And they told me it was $3,600, and I didn't have the money, so I sat on the curb outside and I cried. And I said, one day I'm gonna own all this stuff, not even knowing what I was saying or whatever. Had one of my spiritual daughters with me. We were gonna do a sip and paint space. And I was trying to be a pioneer of bringing sip and paint to Montgomery, and I just couldn't afford the space. And so now that I could afford space, I came back to rent space, and the owner of the building happened to be here, and they said, "Hey man, look, why don't you just buy the entire block from us? We own everything on the block. Why don't you buy the entire block?" And I thought I couldn't afford it, but the Lord made a way, and so now I own the entire block.
Well, I want to talk to you about, because I think that's so powerful, and we're going to come back into speaking those things into existence as believers. But I want to talk to you about your first business, and that was Crave. Am I correct?
Crave, yeah.
Talk to me about Crave and how that came to be.
12 years ago, almost 13 years ago, I was fresh out of prison and homeless here in Montgomery, walking these same streets where I own stuff. And when I was homeless, I got a job at Baumhauer's waiting tables. So I took my money and I started getting a hotel room right next to Baumhauer's at the extended stay. So I started doing food out of my room. God gave me this vision about going to beauty shops and barbershops and hustling these, meat and tubes for $8.50, and that included drink. So I took my $200 of food stamps I was getting, plus money I was making at Baumhauer's, and that's what I did. My room was set up. I had ironing boards for prep tables. And I remember the first couple of months, I couldn't sell anything. I was just trying, nobody would buy it. They didn't know who I was. I didn't have a car, so somebody was taking me, and all they saw was me pull plates out of a trunk. So I would always figure out who, long story short, the manager was, and I would leave plates. Like, here you go, just, here's my number, y'all call me, I'll see y'all next week. And I found these guys that had a studio, and they would be high as a kite, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, but they would call me because I was open when nobody else was.
Okay.
And I had this chicken sandwich that I was making, I'll never forget. They would always get that, and they would give me $500, $1,000 every night, and it wouldn't be that much food. And so whenever I would go on Friday and Saturday, I would take this chicken sandwich. One day I had a new idea of a Philly cheesesteak. So I took this Philly cheesesteak, and the guy was like, "Man, where's the chicken sandwich?" And I was like, "Man, I did a Philly cheesesteak this time. I want y'all to try some new stuff." He said, "Hey, we crave that chicken sandwich." And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, "Oh, that's the brand." And that happened. And then the next thing that happened was the judge who sentenced me, where I was supposed to get 15 years to life. That same judge called and said, "Hey, somebody told me about this amazing food. We want you to cater our Christmas party.
Look at wow.
And it forced me to have to get legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to a few people. I bootstrapped. I did that whole thing, and then I had a location that I opened in Millbrook, Alabama. And that was the first grade.
You know, it's interesting because I'm listening to the story. Where does it come from? Where does not the desire to have your own business, but where does the motivation come? Because we run into a lot of young people where I work, children, our young men are locked up, and we spend a lot of time trying to push them, motivate them. Hey, this does not determine your life. This moment of who you are is not a definition of your journey. Where did the motivation come from? Because you're talking about you were locked up and then you were homeless but there was something pushing you.
I just think it's processing. I've been very aggressive since I was a young boy. I had my first business at 9 years old. It was called BTP Cleaning Services. I hired my mom, my aunt, my uncle, and I had a cleaning service with 3 contracts with apartment complexes. And they could not believe that this 8-year-old wrote a contract with an apartment complex, and they did it because of my story. They was like, hey, this 8-year-old has got legitimate business. And so I've always had this aggression and this, I never wore, children's clothes. I always had on suits at school. I was that guy. I had a briefcase full of candy bars that I would hustle and sell to the teachers and to the kids.
Students.
I mean, and I made a lot of money. I was a musician in church, came a pre-K, PK. So I played in church my whole life, played the drums, the organ, keyboard, all these different instruments. And they saw this young maestro. And I was making, by the time I was 12, $1,000 a week because I had several churches I was playing for. So I've always had this aggression and this hustle for business. I think as I hit a bump in the road, it pushed me to now recreate who I was. And I thank God because he sometimes puts us in situations to put something in us and to get something out of us. So I was put in a crunch where I had to do something and I knew I could cook. I knew food was the thing, and that was the first thing that started to bring some revenue, and that birthed these other 13 businesses that I do have.
And I think that's, being a black man, I think that is absolutely phenomenal. And I have something stuck out what you said. You were able to employ mama and auntie in them. As black women, as mothers, can you give us some advice coming from a child who had all these gifts? I know they didn't give up on you when you got locked up. What are some of the things that your elders put in you? What are some things, because as a mother, and I have a daughter, and she's finding out her gifts, she's finding out what she enjoys, and I want to optimize on that. And if you do mess up, if things happen, the most precarious thing happens, what are some things that were put in you so that we now see this man, this entrepreneur, this CEO, we see all of this father, this man of God? What were some things that they put in you?
I think the big thing for me was not necessarily what was put in me. I didn't have the process of finding. Because if I had tried to find myself, I would have been an orthopedic surgeon. That's what I wanted to be, So I was trying to find this path to be this orthopedic surgeon. I was raised by my great-grandmother who taught me how to cook. And she used to always say stuff like, hey, you never have to depend on a woman for anything. So she taught me how to cook. I was real long and lanky and skinny, so she taught me how to move my buttons over about 4 inches so that my shirt could fit around my neck. She showed me how to sew. She showed me how to do all of these things that people try to define as, that's just feminine stuff. The boy ain't supposed to know that, but I'm grateful for it now. I can cook, I can sew, I can do all those things. So I didn't have to find a way. I just kind of bumped into destiny with this stuff. And so I don't know that there's a remedy. The one thing I always say to people is don't deny a person's process. I thank God for prison. Prison was what it was for me. It was very unfortunate. I was a naval officer. I was making good money. I went through a traumatic divorce. She took all the money out of the account, caused my check to bounce. And when my check bounced, because I was in the military, I went to prison for a year over a bounced check. Now, there are a lot of people that have that, right? And so everybody talked about how unfair it was. I had never been in trouble. Any of that, and it altered my entire destiny because I probably would still be in the military now. I enjoyed it. I was good. But the Lord stopped it. Put me in a place where he downloaded a whole bunch of stuff. I read my word while I was in there. So when I preach now, I tell people, you're hearing out of me what happened 12 years ago while I was in prison.
let's shift
Okay.
because I want to shift.
All right.
That right there. Let's talk about how we process the negative things that happen to us. So many people get caught up and they allow themselves to get encapsulated in that moment in time. And some people, they never let it go. They never let the fact that they got locked up or that they had a divorce or that they've had a troubled life or things to happen to them. Let's talk about how do we begin to shift our mentality. Even myself, when I go through things, I just was dealing this week with the fact that this is the anniversary of my mother dying this season. How do we as people of God, and whether you a believer or not, how do we turn that corner? You started to move into that. Let's talk about that.
I think that the church has been taught for years now how to celebrate a victory, but we haven't been taught how to war. We've taught, hey, you got victory. We give seeds based upon victory, so it becomes very diluted and manipulative. I call it emotional witchcraft because that's what it is. Where we feel like, and you may have to open that door if that's some of your guests.
Yes.
Where we feel like, with the emotional witchcraft, we feel like if I give a seed, then God gonna bless me at this level, and God's gonna do this. And so, God has this destiny for us, whether you give that seed or not. You know what I mean? I tell people sometimes when they're fasting, I'm like, that's to dethrone King's stomach and get yourself together. But if you're gonna fast when God already told you no, that's manipulation. Like, you can't manipulate him into a yes. So
Stop right there. Hold on. I love that. Emotional witchcraft, and you can't manipulate God into a yes.
Yeah, you can give a seed, you can run around, you can do a split, you can do all of that kind of stuff like that. But if you have not been faithful over the few things, stop asking them for the many things. Like, your process of faithfulness starts with the few. So that's what happened with me. Like, it was all processing, and I learned how to process. So every negative thing, my dad left when I was at a young age for the church. I hated the church. I was a Muslim for 2 years when I was at Howard University because I saw the church take my dad from me. I was molested when I was younger, over and over again. I was called a punk. I overcompensated with women to try to prove that I wasn't going to be this punk that I was called. And so when the church gets that, they make me this monster of a person because he a womanizer, he a hoe. And I was like, I wasn't trying to be a hoe, but what you didn't know secretly was I was molested, and my cousins and the people in my family were making fun of me. So I was doing all of this with these women, not because I wanted to overcompensate with the women, but I was trying to juxtapose what the church was saying.
Right.
And,
and so many of us,
yeah.
Once we grew, because I grew up in church. My dad was a preacher. My great uncle was the pastor for 53 years. My great grandmother named it, Millie Bell Parker named Pilgrim's Rest, still in existence on the west side of Chicago. And I saw my father. It seemed like just what you're saying, he was trying to juxtapose everything that the church told him he was. He was trying so busy to run from that. And so many people, and welcome you all, thank y'all for coming. And so many people end up doing that. So many men end up womenizers, not because they want to be out there with all those women, but I don't want to be looked at, and a lot of men in church get called, gay or whatever, and it leads that there isn't something on the inside. It leads to all sorts of foolishness with women, being a woman preacher. There are so many umbrellas they try to put on me as a woman preacher, and I'm like, oh no, that's why I'm going to smoke this hookah right here. I'm going to live my life. I'm enjoying myself because, can you talk to me about the downloads we get from God and how to effectively give those out without having, we so quick the minute someone can speak or they can do that, oh, you've been called to preach. And a lot of times thrusting people into ministry, and I think my hookah is ready, thrusting people into ministry is so unfair because now you're dealing with people who feel like, okay, thank you, love, who feel like they're being manipulated into preaching.
Yeah, I don't, feel like I was manipulated into anything. I actually think that the call was on me and it was in me and all of that kind of stuff. I just think that I got a freedom by understanding that, church people, respectfully, will will box you in, and I just can't be boxed in. You see
And
what I'm saying?
you're not, even if someone gets to hear you preach. You're
Yeah,
not.
I can't be boxed in. I think the first time you heard me preach was also the same day that I resigned from a church that tried to box me in. Like, I literally resigned that day. Like, I'm not doing this anymore, because I just, you just can't box people in. So my process has shown me that God is with me no matter where I am. So people call me a narcissist because my faith always has me living risky, but I just never saw God fail me no matter where I was. I was paralyzed from the waist down. I was in prison. I was heartbroken. I preached at her church the day after I got out of the hospital, being paralyzed from the waist down. And it was just ignorant, because I, said, I feel pain in my legs. They was like, you can't feel pain in your legs, you're paralyzed. I was like, yes, I feel pain. And when I could get up because I felt pain, pain pushed me up. You see what I'm saying?
Say that again.
Pain pushed me up.
I'm going to make, because I think I made a meme out of something that you said before that spoke to me. Allow the pain to push you up.
Yeah, pain pushed me out of UAB. And I was the ignorant one with my gown open in the back, walking down the hallway, and they was like, you're not supposed to be walking. And literally that was a Saturday. And then that Sunday at 2 o'clock, I was preaching. You see what I'm saying? So I've allowed those situations to make me greater. Who can go from being homeless 4 years later, being what I call a thousandaire, and now you sit next to a millionaire? It's just, God did that kind of thing. And so I don't let stuff box me in. I let the process be what it is. And I think that, I know I heard God. God gave me all these businesses, and he said, you are a funder of the kingdom. He said, I got to take you out the church, let you go make the money where the money is, because church people too busy trying to get it in the offering. And he said, I'm going to let you go back and fund the kingdom.
I'm going to run out of here.
Do you know how many churches I paid off? Do you know even my assignments where they think they got to give me an honor? I'm like, keep that, but let me drop this $15,000 too while I'm here, because y'all need to own this building. I'm able to show a different stature of a thing, and people don't believe that it's God. When I bought the building, this was a hookah bar previously. It had shut down, and God told me, reopen the hookah bar. Gave me drink recipes and everything. When the saints say that, they thought I was crazy. They tried to put me in a mental hospital and everything. Said, how can a preacher own a hookah bar? But I've won more souls in this hookah bar than I have ever had in church.
Yes. Yes.
And it's just the navigation of a place.
But isn't that who Christ was?
Absolutely.
We love to holler what we're not supposed to do. He turned water to wine, and do not get into histrionics with me.
Right.
Do not, because I know the history and I know what wine is. Don't get into history with me.
Yeah.
My thing is, how do we expect for people to come into the kingdom and come into their fullness if we are not where they are?
Absolutely.
And and what I love about this, and people talk about the hookah, and I said, the hookah ain't the worst thing I done smoked.
Right.
Let's be very clear. But it gives me a different perspective, because what it does is this is the breaking down of walls. That's why I was so anxious. As soon as Vaughn said it, I said, yes, I love Brian Pleasant. I've always loved what he stood for. And even to hear you preach is absolutely phenomenal, because it comes from a sincere place.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with the haters? Aside from the fact of your bank account, aside from the fact that you keep grinding. But I tell people, the higher you go, the worse the hate is going to get. So why do you make decisions on what people are going to think if God has given you a vision?
Absolutely. I had to stop doing that. It's a blessing in being put out. The day I met you and I was over preaching was the day I resigned. And I always go back to that place, because that was a really hurtful place, because I really loved those people. And they said that they were the friendliest people in America. And it was just horrible. It was bad. The church polity was bad. The character attacks was bad, because when people can't get you, and I'm that person that you can't really get me, so you can say whatever you want to, and I'll just still love you and love you through it. But when they can't get you, they'll attack your character. And so then it was, well, his degrees are not real. Then I was sleeping with the women in the church, which none of them were worthy.
Know your worth. Know your worth. Hey.
If I was gonna mess, it wouldn't have been. In Jesus' name, wouldn't have been.
But listen, know your. I know the folks that listen. Know your worth.
So all of that, and everything that you see now, I was trying to do in the confines of pastoring there. I was trying to open a restaurant. I was trying to open daycare centers, all of that. And the Lord literally allowed that to shut down and instantly thrusted me into doing it for myself, and it was a greater profit.
So let's talk about character assassinations. why do you think that's the first thing we do to our black men in leadership? You know, when you look at it out of a historical context, from King to Malcolm X, we can look just locally. You know, sometimes your public servants can't even have fun because they're so worried about what people gonna say, what they gonna think. They get put in such a box. If you sitting up, you know, talking to a sister, you could just be empowering her, trying to teach her the way. They gonna put you in the bed with
Absolutely.
her. How do you handle that?
The one thing I realized very quickly is dogs don't chase parked cars. So if people are talking, it's an assessment tool for me. I'm like, okay, I must be doing something. I must be shaking some ground. And I just don't worry about it anymore. I've grown to a place of maturity where I understand it comes with the territory. And so having businesses out of the country, having businesses all over the United States, everywhere I go, there's that character attack. And most times it comes from jealous people who need to be mentored, but don't have the guts.
And they won't humble themselves
enough to say, hey, Pleasant, show me how you doing it, or hey, can you come to my church? Because that's what I've done with a lot of pastors. I've shown them, I'm like, man, I can come open a daycare at your church and show you how to get 50 kids in your daycare center. You're thinking about
to build wealth.
$25,000 more a month that can come into your ministry, and what more could you do with ministry if you kind of had that? But people are so territorial. Montgomery is one of the worst regions that I've seen with people being very territorial. Even when I opened my church here, there was a bishop that will be nameless that told me I should have come and kissed his ring because his church was the gateway to the city. And I was like, well, everybody's saying that church is the gateway to the city.
Right.
Like, you know, and I didn't know any of y'all coming in. I was new. I had come through homelessness. I had come through prison, and there were a group of people who were following, who forced me to open this ministry. But we put polity behind all of that kind of stuff. So I think those character attacks come with the territory.
And let's stop there. I had a wonderful opportunity yesterday to meet with Angie. I'm going to be hosting Saturday at the museum. And she's such a sweet spirit. Took me to breakfast the second time. She's taking me to breakfast just to go through, you know, some things that we have to do. And we ate at Cafe Louisa in Old Cloverdale. And I was sitting and I was looking and I was saying, I don't see a McDonald's around here. I don't see any fast food restaurant. This entire strip, this community that they're building, these are all homegrown businesses. And you said something about, why do we have to be the only one? If I'm doing this, can't nobody else do it. If I'm doing this, can't nobody else do it. We get threatened, we get in our feelings, then we work to try to tear them down. How do we break the mentality? Because I'm like, you go within a half a mile and it's 3 or 4 McDonald's. KFC, they got Popeyes right here. You go on around the bend, you got KFC. You come back further, you got another McDonald's. So I don't get why in our community only one person can do this, or we can't have 2 hookah lounges, or we can't have no more than 1 club. Yeah. How do we break that mentality that it's enough out there for all of us to get it?
I think what you just said is key. It's a mentality, and it's been bred in us. It's been bred in us, and it's difficult to break. It's got to be personal. For me, I think that all of us have different personalities. I have a business in Cloverdale as well, and I love the fact that Cloverdale people support my bed and breakfast. Before they would go to a Marriott, I stay booked, right? At my bed and breakfast. I love it.
And we got to give me that information because I prefer. My friend Granada got me hooked on bed and breakfasts. They are absolutely amazing when you're traveling. I'm sorry.
No. But I was just going to say that, you know, it's just a group of us, especially in the black community, that have overcome the mentality that I have to be the first, or I have to be the chief person. Like, I love to collaborate. I love to merge. I like mergers. If you look at what's happening in the world of business, there are mergers and collaborations, because I think when you come together, you can do more. So even with, I was the first official hookah lounge here, and then the hookah house came thereafter. But we've collabed on some stuff. We have 2 different audiences. It's 2 different vibes. When I need help, I can call him and I'm like, hey man, you know, I'm doing CBD hookahs now. And, you know, what do you think about this? He was like, well, I wasn't doing them. Where's your wholesaler coming from? You know, so I was able to put him on game because we have 2 different worlds. And even when I'm at capacity, I tell him, hey, the hookah house is open. you know, and you can go up the road. They're right on Burbank, and he'll do the same thing. But that's just because we don't have the mentality that we have to be the only one, so I have to sabotage you. Like, we've been bred that if I blow your candle out, then my light's gonna be shining brighter than yours, and that's just stupid.
It's beyond stupid, because actually it's why I'm hoping that we're seeing a change, because everyone knows I love B-Tops. I see that business flourishing on the north side, and the owner and of that particular place, Bobby, he is so open, amazing to talk to and mentor young men. Having you, there are a lot of sisters out there that are getting it, especially we got some fashion icons that their businesses are booming, because I would rather go support this sister. Anybody knows me, I love Beautiful Boutique. I absolutely love Kai and what she's doing, and I know that she's open. So mentorship, how can we really begin to invest in more mentorship in the city? Do we need to start having symposiums and forums where we literally, because a lot of people think they're mentors and they're not, they're manipulating. They're not mentoring. They're not helping people spread their wings and pushing them out into greater.
I think we're in a society right now where people don't even realize that mentorship is necessary. Like, to get to the next level is by invitation only. And I didn't become a millionaire just because I had businesses. I had a bunch of businesses and I still didn't make $1 million. It wasn't until I went to somebody who mentored me, and he said, hey, you know, your restaurant is out here, you've been renting from me, let me sell you this building so you can own this gym, so you can own this, so you can do this, and on and on. I was like, I can't afford it. So he mentored me through a process of something I had never heard before called mezzanine financing.
Mezzanine financing. We want to thank you for that, Pearl, because somebody on there is going to grab a hold of it.
I had no money, so this man literally wrote me a check for $475,000, inflated the price of what he was selling the building for, and then put that in the price of the building, and then put an additional $150,000 in for me, and all I had to do was be responsible for getting financed. And he literally said, here's a name, call this guy, don't go to a big bank, call this guy at this community bank, tell him I sent you, you're going to get approved.
And when we do stuff like that, here come the haters. You know, and they do it all the time in their community.
And let me say, this was not a black man.
Oh.
This was an older white man.
And I'm going to hit this up. Go ahead. You have the floor.
And so an older white man taught me how to be a millionaire. He said, hey, if you're going to be documented as a millionaire, you can't just have capital and money flowing. You got to have enough properties. And so he started to sell me all of his properties because he was doing bigger properties. He was buying the
passing
mall
it on.
And on and on. And he said, hey, I see you working hard. You got the Crave out here. It's doing well. You know, now you're in a different demographic. He said, but if I put this $1.6 million building on your personal finance sheet, then that's going to give you a certain clout when you go to the bank. So he taught me how to diversify. Nobody taught me about diversification. They just taught me to cook good, because that's what we do.
And you were willing to learn.
I was willing to learn. So I needed him as a mentor. Right now, a millionaire mentor for me, I will be a decamillionaire. In my mind, I've been saying it, I'm going to be a decamillionaire in 2 years. So Kenyon Henderson, Pastor Kenyon Henderson out of Houston, Texas, I'll never forget the need for him. I was in a master's class, and he said some stuff, and I was like, I need to sit with this guy. So I talked to him, I tried to get his number, any of that, and it was dispelled. But I heard him say that he wanted this pair of Jordans. He used to play for the NBA. His wife said he couldn't buy these Jordans, and this man is a multi-millionaire. I'm like, so why would he not be able to buy this pair of shoes? Long story short, I bought the Jordans for him. I called the church like I was a member and said, well, what size shoe pastor wear? I bought the Jordans. I sent him one of them. And in the box, I had a letter that said, now that I got my foot in the door, maybe you'll entertain me. Gave my number. He called. He said, this was the most creative thing that I've ever seen. Not only did I go to Houston, Texas to get what I needed to be mentored, but I also went to Houston, Texas to preach on a platform only because he was saying, you have a brilliant mind that you would buy one shoe and put this in the, you know. So I think we need mentors, but everybody wants to be the master. So we live in a society now where everybody have master classes and they mastered nothing. If this was my show, I probably said nothing. We just ain't
you really could. I know you don't really have the time to tune in, but trust me, this is the platform where you can say. So now, and I want to now shift. You mentioned wife, and you always, because you're very busy, so you're not on social media a lot. Talk to me about the importance of family. Talk to me about how important the family structure is. How do you use that also as a motivational tool?
I'm a philosopher. I have a PhD in philosophy. I'm gonna take a different approach. It's not just about having a family or having a wife. You gotta have the right one that's going to help you propel to where you're going. I could have had a bunch of wives. There was a bunch of people I thought I was in love with and I should have married. But I'm glad that I have the one that I have, because where I am and where I'm headed, she fits the mold for that. She's not trying to be all needy. She knows I work 15-hour days, 16-hour days. She calls. She's like, where are you at? I'm going to drop some food off. Hey, I had your administrator order some food for you. You need to take an hour to go eat. I know you're going to the gym, so I left some gym clothes at the gym in your office, right? She ain't trying to sweat me. She ain't trying to talk about the beautiful ladies that come in the hookah lounge. Many times they don't even know she's my employee. So she'll be behind the bar making drinks, and they just think she's just a pretty girl that I hired or whatever the case is, until she starts to speak to them like, oh yeah, that's my husband, we own this. And they're like, well, why are you working behind the bar?
Because
so every business that I've had, she's been my first employee. Without a check, without any of that kind of stuff. So I think the importance of having
Did she come like that?
She came like that.
So you didn't have to raise her?
Absolutely not. I didn't have to train her into anything. The great thing about it is I was homeless. I got that job at Bumhouse. We talked earlier. I got a job at Bumhouse waiting tables. And I had no clothes, so I had some baby wipes that I would wipe off with when I would catch the bus and walk. The girl was serving the table that I sat at waiting on my interview. She just kept coming. She was like, hi, I'm Elaine from Hawaii. You know, and I was like, oh, hey, how you doing? And so she was like, let me get some water. You sweating? And then she was like, the restroom's back there. You know, get yourself together before the guy comes out here. Never once tried to, you know, get anything from me. Even after we started dating, you know, I didn't have a car. She used to always say, a man that walks alone now, but you can drive my car. She let me drive her car. And she was with me through every step of my process that got me to where I am now. So when people say, well, you bought another Bentley? Yeah, because when I didn't have a car, you know, and they say, she just had a 5-carat ring for her birthday, you gave her a 7-carat ring. Yeah, because she wore a cubic zirconia, $27 ring for about 8 years. And I was preaching all over the place, and people would have thought that that ring was some kind of money ring. We ain't have it.
But what was beautiful, she wore it because it was from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So because she supported at such a level, I think that it's very important for you to have a spouse that can carry your next level, that can help you birth your next level, not just having one. Because when I was in church, they told me as a young preacher, you need to get your wife. Just get your wife. You need a wife. You're going to pastor us, you got to have a wife.
And so many young preachers get caught up in that. They almost
Absolutely.
get, and I talk to some of them and I'm like, you know, and they will tell you,
Absolutely.
Are you ready? I had a dear friend, I won't say his name, but he waited for years. And I always was proud of him for that. Don't push people to make you feel like you have to be married, because marriage is not that wedding.
Absolutely.
It's not that day. It is such a combining, it's a contract, it's a covenant. And when we talk about equally yoked, since the philosopher, please philosophize for the people on equally yoked. Talk to the people. We have a lot of sisters that are on here, and I love to give them inspiration, because we are all, you know, waiting for him to find us.
Yeah. Well, I think in your equally yoked, if we take it from a broader perspective, and let's occupy that space, I don't think that standards matter when it comes to a marriage. Now let me preference.
I'm here for all of it.
Let me preference, because he could be your standard from a look standpoint, but he could not be your standard from other standpoints. Like, I've heard women say, well, he too short, I don't date short men. But, you know, he has the job that can either put you on the insurance that you need to help you get to the next space, or he has the ability to fund the very thing that God is trying to birth out of you. I mean, it could be a number of things, and we get so trapped up on, oh, I need a 6-pack with baby oil and a wife beater, or whatever that standard is that is really stupid.
I love it.
So for me, I used to always date red bones, AKAs, long hair. That was my type. And so when I met my wife, it was the opposite of what everybody always saw me with. And so my mom said to me, she said, that girl is what you need, because what you wanted always broke your heart. And I was like, dang. So I had to realize about standards. And then when we talked, we really talked that we understood that marriage is a business. Now here's some crazy stuff that people don't like. The Saints don't like when I kind of talk
about it, because I want to upset the Saints.
Because this is the reality. If you take a case of like a Eddie Long, when he had his mishap, his wife filed for divorce, and then she quickly, 13 days later, recanted that divorce because she realized that this is a business. And before I will mess up this $1 million legacy, I'm going to go back and I'm going to, I'm hurt. I'm upset. I don't know what to believe. But she stood in a space because she understood the business that comes with that level. And that's why some people don't make it to next levels, because God can't trust us with what could happen on that level, and you ain't got enough business to understand
that is bigger.
That is bigger
than the scandal.
I got my feelings hurt.
Or got my feelings hurt.
And hell, we can't press through, get my feelings hurt. All we know is,
and say that again, that I can't press
through, get my feelings hurt.
Yes.
There is no emotions in the boardroom. When
None.
I was the vice president of food and beverage for the Marriott Corporation, I sat in a room with a whole bunch of older white men who called me boy, called me nigga, and all kind of stuff. But I opened 127 restaurants in the time that I was there. So when I quit, they had to hire me as a consultant because they didn't know what I did, and they didn't know how to do what I did. So I was okay with it. I used to go in and say, "Your boy here," and talk real. I'm you, just a male boy.
It's confusing the enemy.
Yeah, they didn't know what to think. They was like, "This man just talked to us crazy," and I was like, "I don't work for you. I'm your consultant. Now, either y'all can figure it out." And it took them about 4 years before they brought a person in who figured out my model. But even after that, I had patents and royalties set up, so I still get paid now, 8 years later, from the Marriott Corporation for models that I put in place while I was there.
And now taking all of that
Yeah.
and bringing it to our community. You could have gone anywhere else in the world, because there's nothing that has you trapped here.
Nothing.
But the reason why I was so intrigued by it is because of what others said about you. And coming from people that I know, just because you itch don't mean they're going to scratch. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to know what spoke out more to me than anything, let's talk about some of the things you do, your collaboration with Alabama State, with Lead Academy, because even though, with the state of everything, I have been absolutely against charter schools, but the minute you said, well, I provide the food service, that makes me say, oh, it begins to change your mind and your thought process when you hear people connected to certain things. So I love the Alabama State collaborations, and you have a lot of stuff coming up. So please talk to us, and then I want people to know fully about what you offer here, because when I say I'm so grateful, that's my friend. And when you talk about collaboration, myself, I do what I do. Nick Rankin's Young Men on a Mission, and he does what he does. And then we have Crystal Russell in the back with Destiny Driven, and she does it. So the three of us put our heads together, and they brought me on because I'm not the paperwork, but I'm a creative mind.
Right.
And so they brought me on, and we've come together. We haven't had any fights. And so then, boom, I get to bring on Jennifer Adams, who is an amazing mind.
Yeah.
And then I get to bring my sisters on because they're amazing minds. And now you have this web with the volunteers and everything. Yeah. So I want people to know, because I believe in supporting people that support others. So if you don't see me at your function, I'm not a picture taker. Okay. So I don't get a rise out of, this person is going to be there, that person, so I get to I like to support people that are in those places and spaces where you rarely see folk. And a lot of times people don't see you pleasant because you just don't walk around. You got your jacket on and stuff today because you do things decent and in order.
Right.
But most of the times you're working your own businesses, and I absolutely love that. Yeah. Can you talk about some of the things that you have coming up?
Yeah, so, our collaboration with Alabama State happened about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was almost history that was made. I love Alabama State, not because I went to Alabama State. I was a professor at Alabama State. I was the chaplain at Alabama State, and I worked in recruitment at Alabama State. But I have a special place in my heart for them. But now on this side, one of the things that happened is I had a collaboration with them from a food and beverage standpoint. I do concessions there. If you go to the game, my party bus is there.
And we're going to talk about that. Keep going.
The experience is there. So if you're going to have alcohol at the game, it comes through the experience. And other things that are forming with Alabama State. I love Alabama State. SGA calls whenever they need, I give because I love Alabama State, right? Also other things happening, here we have the hookah bar upstairs.
And this is lovely. Now, what flavor? I asked for mango. I love mango. And you all cannot see it. First of all, this hookah is absolutely gorgeous. It is black and gold, the colors of Alabama State. And Mr. Pleasant was so kind because at first we had set up differently.
Okay.
And when I tell you, he could have easily, I'm not going to take us through the stress, because you could have easily said, no, we're going to stay here, we're not going to do this. And immediately I said, oh, you'll do the hookah for me. You bounce right into action, and you're here running this space. You don't have anyone here, but because the quality of what you do is very important to you, you knew how to operate all of this, and you set this beautiful hookah up for me, and you have gorgeous hookahs all over. So talk to me about the VIP hookah.
Yeah, VIP Hookah Lounge. Again, this was formerly Bora Hookah. And when I bought the building, one of the spaces that I had to navigate was the city and how they put certain restrictions on people
Talk about it.
who are trying to advance. They make it very difficult. You know, they changed a lot of codes and a lot of things, and I think that is systemic racism that has been put in place because most of us don't have.
And put a lot of stuff, made it difficult for Mayor Reed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Made it difficult for
Absolutely.
him. I'm sorry.
So I think in that what happens is they try to make it so aggressive that it runs you away from trying to do business here. I had to say to them many times and on council meetings and everything, like, look, this is one of the worst places that I do business, this municipality. Other places, Birmingham, Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, I have a chartered yacht that I have in Destin. And it's one of the best places because they wanted me there. They said, hey, you're going to charter your yacht? And I'm like, yeah, and I'm going to run party buses from Montgomery, and we're going to do comedy shows and host parties and all of that kind of stuff. So they liked the fact that I became part of their tourism. And they gave me funding, and they gave me spaces, but Montgomery was a little different. And so I opened this space, I remodeled the space. I put about $375,000 in the total building. We have a courtyard downstairs. We have an event center downstairs that's just totally beautiful because I wanted people of all races and colors to learn something different. Now, I know we've been doing hookahs, and when I say official hookah place, there are places that do it that we talk about all the time. B-Tops is doing hookahs. A lot of the clubs are doing hookahs. But there's a real culture behind hookah. And so what I did is I made sure that I imported some hookahs. Like the one you have came from India.
Can you slide this over for me?
So my first ram of hookahs that I got, all of those came from out of the country, and then I got some locally and things of that nature. So all of the etch work and all of the different things, and so I wanted to be able to give us an experience, whether that experience was with flavored tobacco or CBD, other contents and other spaces. People, have us do pop-ups at their houses and things of that nature like that. So
you can come to someone's house.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to talk about, we're going to do a series, He Said, She Said, and I want to, and as soon as I was telling Pleasant, oh, I want to do the He Said, She Said, he was like, well, come on, get on the party bus. So I thought, man, what an amazing atmosphere. What I love about the party bus, because I love B-Tops, we can get the party bus here, and then we can take the party bus over to B-Tops, and then we can sit around and eat, and we can do a whole thing, because I want to do what He Said, She Said, and I would love for you to be a part of that, because
Absolutely.
You are very open. And I think a lot of times, some of the main issues, the Saints, relationships, sex, and money. Those are always some of our prevailing issues. Yes, we want to get right, we want our spirit right, but when you start listening to the Saints about the gaps and the holes, it's money, it's relationship, it's sex, and it's wholeness, whether mind, body, and spirit. And so doing He Said, She Said, I wanted to have a conversation with people of the faith that will not have a problem with being very open. And since day one, you are very open to discuss any topic. Nothing is off limits, and give a very, not only a raw account, but a very intelligent as well response to it. Now, the experience downstairs, how many does that hold?
it holds 175. Outside holds 350. And we use that space for live bands. Like on second and fourth Thursdays, we have a live band here on Amateur Night. So anybody who think they can sing, want to sing, whatever, you just pick your song, get on stage, and we put that whole experience around that you are the center of the focus. And you'll have a couple of hundred people downstairs on those nights. I've diversified, so we don't just do R&B, you know, all that kind of stuff like that. We do gospel. On fourth Fridays, we have punk bands. I've invested into a band called the Stark Society. It's a black rock band.
I love it.
Like the thing about black people, we can take over any space.
And make it our own.
Yeah, and so I really like that. And so they're doing punk band stuff, and we have the Highlanders who are coming on fourth Fridays. We have bluegrass bands, Wind Down Wednesday. So this is a creative hub. You know, once I finish with it, you'll have murals and you'll have artwork all over the place.
Because it's a process.
It's a process, yeah.
And I want to end on that.
Yeah.
It is a process, and you cannot negate the process. Anything great, there will be a process. How do we not only get into a process, how do we stay true to our process? Even someone like myself, I started out very small. As you can see, my setup, the way it is, it's nothing major. But I love the fact that we started off and you were talking about speaking things into existence. And I've been told constantly, you know, you cannot speak negatively. Watch your words. Watch your words, Michelle. And I'm learning to be very careful because they will immediately begin to manifest.
Yeah.
So now that we got that, I want you to end on speaking life to your situations and the process.
Yeah, I think that's very important because that's where the devil robs us every time in what we speak. And right now, we're not conscious with our language. We say stuff like, oh, I'm dead. You know, we just kind of speak these weird things. Oh, you get on my nerves. You make me sick. And I'm very conscious about what I say. And I've taught my kids to be very word conscious. I've taught my family to be very word conscious. So we don't say stuff like that. I think you speak what you want to see. And that's what I did when I was doing plates out of my room. I used to always speak that I'm a money magnet. I'm anointed for large sums of money. Like, those are my affirmations every day. I was just telling my church, I literally play those things. I speak at a high frequency of those things, and I watch those things manifest. So that moved me out of a room into my restaurant. Then when I got the restaurant, other opportunities opened up. So I own daycare centers. So I got one daycare center, and I said, well, it's full. I used to go in there like old school church and touch every crib and touch every chair. And it filled up the daycare within a year. And then it forced me into the second and to the third daycare. And then once I started having all these locations, stuff was breaking down. So I opened a construction company because I was paying subcontractors to come in. I was like, they might as well be on my payroll. And so I opened a construction company. And then I went and got certified as a general contractor. And one thing opened up for another thing. And so now you have this space, you have downstairs. Next door is an urban coffee house that I'm opening at the end of the month. Right across the street from Alabama State, where Boo Man's Barbershop is a new Crave that's coming. The home healthcare service. I sell cars. Everything shakes hands. I have a tax company, so when people would come in to get their taxes done, I'm like, well, what are you going to use your taxes for this year? Well, I want to get out of my mama house. So the next year, I bought 10 houses. I flipped those houses, and I start doing bonded mortgages. I say, hey, that $2,500, you know, that you have, let's put that down on a house. You pay $600 a month, and you'll own your house in 5 years. So I become the bank and the mortgage company. So that forced me into that. So at the end of this year, in December, I'm opening a credit union. A guy with 2 felonies got a waiver from the FDIC to open a credit union. Ain't that crazy? So,
no, not at all. I think it's amazing, and I think it's something that people need to hear, because right now there are people on this live right now that have dreams. There are people on this live that are sitting. They should have given birth to that baby more than 9 months ago. They sitting up like elephants. They 2 years behind. I'm 2 years behind. I'm 10 years behind. And so if we don't have any takeaways, number one, watch what comes out your mouth.
Yes.
Watch the affirmations, because like you said, look, somebody put help us pleasant. Ronnie Henderson, that's my best. Okay, like Ronnie.
Yeah.
Ronnie has the best chicken salad. I had an
Love
opportunity.
It.
I mean, I was floored at how delicious it is. And so I want to see Ronnie in that position. He's an amazing cook. I'm glad that he knows you so that we can go to his restaurants and we can, you know, and I don't want it to be where one or two have to be always. No, I want people, like you said, the city. Are you pushing these businesses? Are you pushing Pleasant's business? Are you pushing Henderson's businesses and everyone else? I have people right here in this room. My sister should have her own home where she takes care of special needs children. She's been doing it for so long.
But that's the need for the collaboration. Like if Ronnie Henderson would have ever called me and say, hey, look, this is what I'm trying to do, he could put his chicken salad in any of my restaurants. One. Secondly, they want to eat when they come here. I've had my food truck out there every night, you know, whatever the case is, looking for people that I can collab with, that I can say, hey, you take Thursdays. All this month you take Thursday. Or for the next 6 months you take Thursdays or Fridays or Saturdays. Or Sunday night we're going to do some pop-up shops. All of that kind of stuff. There are so many kids that come to my daycare center that have special needs. So I need to open a special needs center, but if there's somebody who needs to have that, guess what? It's the collaboration and it's the investment for me because it's going to solve a problem.
And it's connectivity.
And it's connectivity. So we come up with some kind of, and this is where mergers are. I might have the capital to invest in it, and you might have to do a 60-40 split, and then what you do is build some capital after 2 years and buy me out. Let me move on to the next thing because I don't have to open every business. I own a wine company with a vineyard.
But you don't sit on those businesses.
No, because I went in with somebody for the vineyard. You know, the same thing they're beating up Matthew Stevenson for is the same thing that I've already done.
And we were talking about that.
So when you see these wines in here, I own the company that hosts the wines, right? But my partner, I already know is going to buy me out because that's what we talked about. He just didn't have the money to do what he thought. So I invested the money. And I said, let's give it 5 years and then you buy me out. And then I'm going to buy wine from you to make sure that you sustain this. You see what that looks like?
Help us, Pleasant.
So now that's how my family, my children will never have to work for anybody else. Because I've set up a legacy of investments and collaborations that will do that. I don't own the lot where I sell my cars.
But they're watching. And they're also watching and they will take it.
Yeah, they own their own businesses. That boy make more money than me. He has BJ's Popcorn Factory. In December, I've watched this guy do almost $40,000 from a kiosk in the mall selling his popcorn.
Come here.
My other baby has Bryson's Bow Ties. My daughter has Bella's Bow Boutique, and she sells to all of the children's
And my daughter's going to be so upset because I didn't know, you know, what the process was with having children in here, and she wanted to come. This is Deuce. Talk to us. How are you? You're so handsome. I'm proud of you. I love popcorn. I got to get some of that, okay?
You'll make sure.
You going to make sure I get it? I love caramel. I'm from Chicago. I love that caramel and cheese mix. But, baby, if you give me some plain, I'm good.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. You say, will you wave to everyone? This is why we do what we do. Because the children are our future. Thank you so much, you. That's my nickname for you. I love it. Thank you, Dom.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this.
No, I appreciate you, but this is not the last of us collaborating.
Amen.
Because I'm looking at the numbers and how they stayed up. So you have definitely spoken life to people. You have given everyone something to think about tonight, something to dream about tonight, something to invest in themselves. And being a mother of a teenager, I don't get out a lot, but what I can say is, and I haven't been the best on social media because it's not the best, but if you send me your flyers, I will share them. And I know my homegirl in the back, that generation, they love, see, they can go out on Thursday night and get on up in the morning. You know, it's nobody at the house they got to worry about. So it's all about connectivity. But I'm going to tell you, I love some hookah and I love a relaxed environment. And I'm going to come by here. And as I said, we're at 1408 Madison Avenue. Please come by and join Mr. Pleasant in this amazing business. Crave Restaurant is about to open up by Boo Man. And please make sure, and I know, are you still out east as well? On the east side. And I'm going to, I work at DYS, and now that I know this, I've got to make an effort for when we go to lunch. I'm going to start sending one of my coworkers out there, and we're going to go to the Crave. No, I appreciate this. This has been so illuminating because of the nature I knew, but I did not know the extensiveness in this, and I'm so glad that you walk in who God says you are.
Amen.
and not what man tries to say and what they try to do out of their flesh and their jealousy.
Right.
God bless you,
Thank you so much.
Also, as we come to an end, that leads me into a very humbling thing that I must do. I had an amazing job that I love. I love working at DYS. I love working with the young people, but I had a situation this week. I was accused of something, and it allowed me to come to the table with my boss, and I never say his name and I never talk about him, but I wanted to say personally to Dr. Raphael Richardson, thank you. I have given him a hard time, Pleasant. I was very upset about some of the things that happened to people that I care dearly about, and some of the things that were happening on campus, but the Lord allowed me to have a moment where that whole week I was gaining understanding, and Dr. Richardson did not have to do what he did. He could have held me and how I handled him. But instead of doing that, he supported me, he backed me, and he gave me compassion, and I hadn't done that with him.
Wow.
I didn't. And so it was to the point it brought me to tears, and because a lot of times, and I talked about it this morning when I was talking about King David, and sometimes we encapsulate people in their titles and their posture, and we forget that they're people as well.
Absolutely.
And so Dr. Richardson, I don't always see the eye to eye with. I don't always agree to him, but I wanted to say a personal thank you to Raphael. Thank you, Raphael Richardson. And I want my audience to learn it's okay to humble yourself. It's okay to apologize. It's okay to admit when you're wrong. It's okay to learn lessons. But in the same way I see those means, your disrespect, your apology got to be just as loud. Because a lot of times I say things on here, he has a wife, he has children. And a lot of times we forget that giving our opinions about people, yeah, you might not like, I had an incident with someone concerning Stephen Reed. You may not like Mayor Stephen Reed, but he's Stephen Reed too. And he has a wife, and he has young sons. We got to be careful the things that we say about people in our anger, in our understanding, because sometimes it transcends their position and their posture.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just do that and tell Raphael, he wasn't my classmate, but he was my church member. And it was good to see that the same sermons that I always boast about, Big Hooch, Dr. GWC giving, not only did he hear them, he walked in them. You're a frat brother.
Yeah. All right.
Look, I'm always on here talking about the Omega, so let me give Kappa Alpha Psi Phi Delta Phi a shout out. And I want to give and I need to talk about my dear friend is here, Crystal Russell. She is the CEO of Destiny Driven, and I'm glad she came because here we go, connectivity. Gail is back there, connectivity, and we'll get off this live and we will have these conversations. But Juneteenth, we received word today that we're having to move from the Troy Highway location to Virginia Loop Road. So all that publicity that has been put out, we are still doing Juneteenth, but it will now be at the Virginia Loop Road location of True Divine. Nick is rushing back here to make the corrections. Russell is making the corrections because we have put a lot of stuff out there about the Juneteenth, and we were expecting a great crowd. We just want y'all to shift and come to Virginia Loop Road. It was out of our control. It was not something we had banked on, but I also believe, and I learned from you, that sometimes the very thing that we think is meant for our downfall is our greatest setup for the victory. And I speak victory over our Juneteenth. I'm so excited about it. To the volunteers, that means that our volunteer meeting will be Tuesday the 15th, but we will be at the Virginia Loop location. And as well as volunteers, as far as sponsorship for the t-shirts, I'm going to have to ask my volunteers to purchase their t-shirts, and we will try to refund you the money. Things happen. I have 25 volunteers.
How much the t-shirts cost?
She hasn't given me the price because she's trying to give a... Oh, pleasant.
Yeah. Let me just pay.
Well, I want the logos. So I need you to send me the logos because I want your logos on the back of the shirt as well. Okay. Thank you. God bless you, brother. Yeah. So I want you all to make sure that you come out, you support this business because he's supporting us, and I didn't ask him. The Spirit touched him and he moved. And I'm going to touch and agree that God is going to move. Look at Shayla. Shayla and Ronnie are on there. Ronnie is one of the volunteers.
Okay.
Shayla is on program. And hopefully, if you get time in your busy schedule to come out Friday between 3 and 8
Absolutely.
to enjoy some of the amazing young people that we have. My own daughter will be doing a poem. And I know, Chris, come here, Chris. You all don't get to see her a lot. But this is Crystal Russell. She is the CEO of Destiny Driven. So her style is real big because we were talking about, okay, so we're going to have to sponsor this event
Thank you
ourselves.
so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes, working with the young people, and you'll get to see what she's invested in our young people. I'm excited
Awesome.
about that. And like I said, we got Jay Fly performing, Quatasian Hunt,
Oh, I love
Tyrone Graham, and
This will
Dimension
be
of
great.
Praise, and Eric Nettles. So like I said, we are shifting
Eric.
the Eric Nettles. Thank you. And if you have never heard Eric Nettles, you know, he pops in and out. And he is an amazing talent, so he's going to close out the evening. And we want to give a special thank you to Councilman Aronde Mitchell, who the vision was brought to him, and he has used all of his resources to make sure that this event, which is centered towards our children, this event is for them. Then on Saturday, I will be at the Museum of Fine Arts, MMFA, and I am so excited because I met with Angie. You all will also be able to see some of the greatest works. The sister that did Michelle Obama's portrait has a piece that is hanging in our museum, one of the greatest collections of African American art. We have an amazing collection of African American art. The woman who does all of the beautiful quilts, we will have those on display. They will have things for the children to do, family things. My girl Tony is going to be out there. Jay Fly is going to be out there. Terrence Baldwin. Tanya Terry is doing a walk through history, through fashion. Our very own First Lady will be one of the models. And then that evening we will be downtown, and I'm doing a poem because I'm trying to hustle as well myself, and this is the opportunity where someone like me who is a performer, they're allowing me, so I'm grateful. And I tell people, you can't pay people for their God-given talent, but you giving me a space to share it means the world to me. I'll be downtown at the amphitheater, and I will be performing a piece with my big brother Lucian Ward, Sean Golston, Michaela McKenzie, Dr. Wendy Coleman, and Doug McCants, and Ron McCall will be performing. But tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, we got the MBL draft, where all of the young men who are part of this, 75 young men that are being drafted this particular MBL, and I hope you get to come out to that. I think that's something great you could connect to, because it's not going to be just about basketball. It's about uplifting these men socially, emotionally, spiritually, by connecting with other men to mentor them and using basketball as a catalyst. And so it's going to be amazing. Mr. Speed is going to be at the YMCA Midtown on tomorrow, and we are so excited about our leadership that is coming forth in this city, making investments back into the community, because guess what? Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. If we don't invest in our children, we will not get anything from them. If you want to know why we have crime, look at your educational system. And that is it. If we don't invest in education, so why I've been fighting against these charter schools, I've let it go. Why? Because our children need to be educated in spaces that will educate the entire child. And they need to be around teachers who feel valued. MPS has some of the greatest teachers in the world. But if you do not feel valued, you will not give your all. So thank you once again. You have spoken life into me, into this community, and we speak life into you greater for you. And I want you to be that decamillionaire, so that my sister back there, Gail, y'all, Sissy Pooh is back there, so that her business can open and all of us can thrive. I want to thank my sister, Arsha Montgomery, who always comes. She's my production manager. She makes sure we get set up, and she generally stays behind the scenes, but she is always praying for and yes, with us, and this entire community is Hey, how you doing, handsome? I love it. You better stand by your kings and queens. If God blesses you with someone that loves you and appreciates you and is willing to invest in who you are and who you are to become, you better lift your hands and tell God thank you, because that is a great blessing, because there is power in family. So to the Michelle Speaks family, may God bless you and may He keep you. and make his face shine upon you. You want to
Say
join
that.
in and keep you in perfect peace is my sincere prayer. May he give
Yeah.
you a peace. May he give you a hope and a future that you get a little more strength to run on to see what the end is going to be. God bless you. Good night.